All right, we're going to talk briefly about how to translate Latin, and this is a short slideshow video of how I prefer that you all translate. If we go a few weeks and you decide that this really isn't your thing and you have other ways that you would like to do this, then I'm fine with that. But for now, I'd like you to translate in this particular way that I'm about to show you. So the first thing that we need to talk about is your setup. It's pretty straightforward, and the only thing that I need you to do is on a blank piece of notebook paper, and it can be loose leaf or in your notebook, is to write the sentence down that you're going to translate. You need to make sure that you leave plenty of room in between each word, and also a line above and a line below the sentence. So if our Latin sentence that we're going to translate is puer puellam amat, you would write those words down, leaving a line above and a line below with plenty of space in between each of the words. So it would look a little like this. You're obviously not going to draw out the chart portion, like you don't have to draw all the different lines, but you do see those pink lines, and I think it's helpful to draw in the lines in between each word so that you can kind of section yourself off some space in between each of the Latin words. Notice that there's space above and below. And in that space above and below, you're going to put one of two things. You can put the meaning of the word, so the actual dictionary definition needs to go in there somewhere. It can go above or below the word, whichever way you choose. And then the job that the word is doing needs to be in there also. And you'll see a little bit what that looks like here in just a minute. So as soon as you have the sentence written down, and again, you don't have to draw in all of the different lines, although the lines in between the words are a great idea, you're just going to start filling in what you know. So I know that the vocabulary word puer means boy in Latin, so I'm just going to write boy up above, in my case, because I put my meanings up above my word. I'm just going to put boy up above puer. Puellam means girl, and amat means love, so I'm just going to fill all of that in. And then I'm going to start filling in the jobs. Now, this can get a little trickier because there's lots of information that you will eventually learn about the job, but for right now, we're just looking for, is it a noun? Is it an adjective? Is it a verb? Is it an adverb? Is it a conjunction? That kind of thing. And so you can start looking at the endings and start familiarizing yourself with the endings of the Latin words, but keep in mind you don't know a lot of endings yet, and so the endings may not be very helpful. But in this case, puer, it ends in an ER, and I know that that particular ending is a noun ending. Now, you may not know that ER is a noun ending, or can be a noun ending. And so the other thing that will help you here is to ask yourself in English, if this word means boy, then is that a noun, a pronoun, an adjective, an adverb? Is it a verb? And obviously boy in English is a noun, so we know that puer is a noun. And we're going to do the same thing with each word here. The ending for puellam is am. I know that that is an ending for a noun, but you know that girl in English is a noun, so that is also a noun. And then our last one, amat, our ending here is t, and that t is a verb ending, so that would be a verb. And right now, that's all that you really need to be able to say about each of those words. You need to remember that Latin does not include articles or helping verbs or a number of other verbs that we would have included in English. And so there are some things that if you were to translate that sentence just the way that it is, it would sound really weird. And so we have to go back in and we need to remember, you don't have to write these in necessarily, but you need to remember that there are articles that might go along with these words, such as the boy or the girl. But then we get to the verb, and obviously it is not the love, because in this case, our verb, our action is love. It's not a thing. And so we need to take a closer look at that verb to see what it is that needs to go along with it. So we remember that the T is the ending in this particular case. And if we don't already have these charts memorized, it can be really helpful to refer back to some charts that are found in the first unit in the Kraken Latin book. And so I've put them here just so that you have them handy. But the first chart are the indicative present tense endings for the first conjugation, ost, mus, tis, nt. And those correspond with English pronouns for the first, second, and third persons. First person being I, second person being you, third person is he, she, or it. And then in the plural, we, y'all, they. Now, our ending of amat is just the T all by itself. And so you see that T there. It's in the third person singular spot, which means that any pronoun that goes with it will be he, she, or it. So now that we know which pronoun is going with it, let's go back to our sentence and take another look at it. So here we have our sentence, puer, puellam, amat, and we know because of that T ending that the verb is a very specific kind of verb. It is a third person singular present active indicative verb. And that's going to tell us a little bit more about how we find our subject later on. But we know that in this case, if we needed a pronoun, we would have to choose from he, she, or it. There would be no other option. And now we get a little bit into Latin word order. You'll remember from the video that you watched earlier that Latin word order goes subject, object, verb, and that word order is not the same as English word order. In English, our word order goes subject, verb, object. And so when we translate something, we're going to have to move some of those words around. And the other thing that we need to look at are those endings. Again, you don't know these particular endings just yet because we're not far enough along in your Latin studies for you to recognize them as being not only nouns, but which type of nouns. And so because of that, you really are relying on the knowledge that Latin tends to be written in subject, object, verb order. So that ER ending for puer, at least, it's not always this way, but for puer, the word, that is going to be the subject form of that particular noun. And so you know that puer is your subject. And then puellam, that am ending, I happen to know that am ending is the object form of that noun. The subject form of puella, which is the actual word that we're looking at, it doesn't end in an n. And so if it were going to act as a subject, that m could not be there. But since the m is there, it has to be a direct object. And we'll get more into this the further along that we get into these, the further along we get into the Kraken Latin, so that you'll have a much better understanding of what the endings are doing and how you know when they're doing a certain job or something like that. But for right now, you know that puer is your subject, puellam is your direct object, and amat is your third person singular present active indicative verb, which means that it's pretty easy to translate it now because all you need to do is to put the Latin words into English word order. Now, don't get me wrong here. Notice that in the chart that's below, I've actually moved the Latin words into English word order. You don't have to rewrite the sentence so that the Latin is in English word order. The only thing that you are really looking to do is to put the English into English word order. So above, if we were to read the English, it would read the boy, the girl, loves. But down below, if we're reading the English, we have the boy, as in he, loves the girl. So you have the boy loves the girl. And so you see that translation happening. Puer, puellam, amat, then translate to the boy loves the girl. So I know that that's kind of a long explanation of how I'd like you to translate, but just to recap, I want you to remember that you're going to write the Latin sentence down. You're going to leave plenty of room above and below and between each of those Latin words. Draw a line in between each Latin word, and then again, you're giving the meaning and the job of each of the words as much as you can possibly give, as much as you know. And then from there, once you've gotten all that information in, you're going to rearrange the words so that you can translate them into Latin. And when I say rearrange, I mean you're going to rearrange them mentally. You're not necessarily rewriting the Latin in a different order. You're just figuring out, okay, where's my subject, where's my verb, where's my object, and then write it down in English in that order. And that's all that you need to do. So for your translation work that's coming up, I would like you to practice this kind of translation for all of the sentences that I assign you.